It's just 2 paragraphs. It's not even that hard, okay? CyubeVR, a voxel game that markets itself as exclusively designed for VR. It's infinitely procedural and claims to offer an experience that'll get you exploring, gathering resources with real-life swinging of your tools, and crafting with your hands to build whatever you may imagine. But why would you choose CyubeVR over something like Minecraft VR or Vivecraft? Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm 𝕨𝕚𝕤𝕚𝕤𝕚. You can call me Krelly if you want, and if you're here for just a quicker opinion so you can be on your way, here we go. CyubeVR is still in early access, but the developers seem very active and responsive across their socials, so with hope and excitement that promised features do roll out eventually, I'd give this game, are you ready for my random rating system? I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 dancing Martians. Last time it was space lollipops. I'm going to keep you on your toes. Consider that I don't personally tend to gravitate to games like this. The closest game I've gotten into that was similar was Portal Knights. With that said, even I am pulling for and want to keep my eyes on CyubeVR for updates that'll pull me in more down the road. I think that if you're looking for a noticeably slower paced, slightly tedious, relaxed, and hands-on open world crafting game, this could be something worth checking out, or at the very least worth keeping tabs on as they add more features. I'll definitely be back and playing more whenever they add multiplayer in. I'd love to build a little community with my friends and explore and chop trees and do little tasks while laughing at how bad my axe swings are. I also think multiplayer would help eliminate or at least add excitement to some of the super tedious tasks in-game. The feel for the most part is also great. I personally prefer it to how Vivecraft feels, though I do believe that'll be specific to preference and how fast you expect to break down blocks and mine for resources. And I also personally prefer the model variation and style of this game more than Minecraft. I think the voxel environment mixed with more realistic styled furnishings, trees, and animals allows me to feel more immersed than when I've loaded into Vivecraft. That said, there are pros and cons of both, and variables to consider if you continue to watch this video. Now let's jump into it a little deeper. To start it off, I have to say I struggled with this video a bit. Doing a game review for a game I'm not already in love with, like my walkabout review, was a weird muscle to flex. I think it's important to disclose that in total I clocked 4.9 hours on this game. Just enough, I'd say, to help me feel comfortable sharing my perspective. I saw this game advertised on Steam, loved the promo shots, eventually added it to my library and paid for it like any consumer browsing new games. Going into it, I knew that resource gathering, voxel type building games are not usually my thing. Don't get me wrong, I can get absorbed with building mechanics, but Minecraft was never it for me. I have a much easier time spending hours building camps or settlements in Fallout games, having more of a realistic prefab vibe. Pixel art and a more blocky style is something I just don't tend to gravitate toward on my own, and I think that's important to keep in mind. I'll be going over the following points. Initial impressions when loading in, the look and vibes, immediate feel and comfort, gameplay, and replayability. I'll also end the video with any final thoughts, suggestions, or considerations. Would I change or add anything? So first impressions, I'd say are positive. You immediately start in the game menu, which is a cool matrix-like chamber of sorts, and are greeted with a developer message from Vroid Studios. I'm not yet used to early access games myself, so seeing how involved and encouraging the developers are for you to join their Discord or even friend them on Steam to chat, I don't know, I thought that was pretty cool. You're encouraged to read the tutorial, obviously, but at a certain point, I don't retain reading instructions and knew I'd have to dive in and get the first few steps figured out before proceeding further. It was a lot to read in one go, so I loaded into a world. And I will say the look is great, and the soundtrack I'm greeted to has me feeling relaxed and excited. There's also a bunch of nature-esque animal noises that adds to the atmosphere. I mean, it just is very inviting right off the bat. I think this game shines visually when it's midday like this as well. I did notice that I had issues with the bloom and God Ray like effects at a few points, When I walked into my first desert terrain, the sun was setting on the horizon ahead of me and I couldn't see, and it wasn't that sun in the eyes, can't see. It felt very washed out, overly exposed. I wasn't a fan, but I was able to turn off that setting when I needed to. I wish the bloom effect was balanced somehow, because I actually am someone who likes bloom. All day, every day. I'm not an anti-bloom lady. This one at points just isn't very aesthetic, especially in VR. I'm sure it's a hard balance to pull off with differing environments, weather, and time of day, but I do hope they keep tweaking that a bit. Because when the bloom works, it works. I mean, sometimes that bloom and God ray casts through a mountain or thick of trees just right, and it's breathtaking. And I touched on it earlier, but I really like the more realistic elements mixed in with the blocky terrain. I'm definitely more so drawn to this blend of style than, say, like vanilla Minecraft. It reminds me of why I liked Portal Knights so much. Portal Knights also found a nice way to blend stylized elements with more truer to life furnishings and models, and I think it works incredibly in VR. When I load into my Vivecraft server, I will say the fact that I'm able to use a custom texture and shader pack makes it more appealing overall to look at. You find less of those wild bloom effects or weird lighting issues, at least with the shader I'm using, which makes sense considering how long Minecraft has been a thing and just how big the community is in terms of mod support and playtesting things. But yeah, I have 2 mods on my Vivecraft server, and I do overall prefer the look there to CyubeVR, but I don't know. I find myself rooting for CyubeVR because of other look and play choices they've made so far for a VR experience. Immediate feel and comfort is pretty great. The haptics, impact, and crafting feels amazing overall. Locomotion feels seamless to how I'm used to playing VR. You even have the ability to teleport whenever without toggling a preference for movement. It seems like the teleport is maybe a replacer for a jump mechanic though. Don't quote me, but I could not figure out how to just jump. I did miss that feature as I don't particularly like to have to rely on teleport movements if I can help it. Slowed me down. Also wondering how you best build for bigger structures. I saw the developer mentions a mechanic where you fly using the bucket you have to suck up resources in game. A mechanic where you position it underneath your viewpoint and ride on it to fly, but I do kind of just wish it was more how you activate flying in creative mode of Minecraft. Double jumping and taking off to fly is definitely preferable for me. I mostly did the bucket thing to travel between mountains. Oh, mountains, that reminds me. It feels and looks so huge in CyubeVR. The mountains absolutely tower over me, and climbing up one when I got to the top, I was so surprised by how high up I was. Genuinely impressive. Snap turning or smooth turning settings are available for your preference of choice, by the way, and your menu is this physical item-like briefcase that you have to hold out when activated. I do like that as the menu. Keeps immersion a bit and felt nice overall when you need to pull items from your inventory while crafting. I was able to learn to navigate my movements in these menus quickly as well, which is always nice. Gameplay is straightforward from what I can tell is offered so far. You load in with a stick as your first tool and have some starter blocks in a chest. And I really like that there are like these collectible floating recipes that incentivizes you to explore. Collecting resources is tedious, as I assume most crafting type builders like this are at first. There is a workshop page for mods on Steam that has a creative mode type edition, but I did not try any of those out aside from the first load in menu ask I got, convincing me to install more block textures, I think. But yeah, let me tell you, getting the hang of hitting blocks for a prolonged period of time, like IRL swinging my arms and bending over to pick gosh dang flowers for dye, kind of bananas. And seriously, where I think this shines for VR and sets it apart from Minecraft in a positive way for me. I don't crave fancy monsters or huge lore here. If they want to add some predator encounters or hunting necessity to survive, I'd be curious, but this game straight up feels cool as heck as like a build a cabin in the woods as a lumberjack sort of simulator vibe. IRL, I'll never know what it feels like to start off in the wilderness with nothing but a stick and go on to potentially build a city. CubeVR seems like it could offer a simulated feeling of what that might feel like. But geez, if they could finally add that multiplayer. With CubeVR, I think the realistic-ish gathering and mining controls adds a tedious but welcomed journey as a VR title, like a slow side project I could concoct with friends or alone as an escape. Like it'd be so nice to load in occasionally with the goal of blowing off some steam, chopping down trees, or building chests and organizing my resources. Imagine months, similar to collecting and piecing together an Animal Crossing island, to slowly build, furnish, decorate, and fall in love with a home I'm building, to go on and add another home for a friend, or a farm to collect dyes, a workshop that makes collecting wood and materials more efficient. Vivecraft doesn't give me that same excitement because of my lack of immersion to the blocky world, or maybe also because of the slightly smaller scale to Cube. Vivecraft also plays like Minecraft. It just feels more automated and maybe less satisfying to collect materials than how Cube makes me feel. But replayability. For me, that's tough. Again, I just have other games I prefer for my own free time. I may try out the mod for creative give me all the blocks mode after this to see if taking away that tedium at least gets me creating something more personal, but I gotta be honest with how bad I think this game may need multiplayer for me to want to revisit. VR has such a social element to it for a lot of people, and allowing people to connect and bond with friends or others in this type of building game would just wrap me in. I know for a fact I would add this to a more stable rotation of games I come back to if my friends and I could play together. No doubt in my mind. We would absolutely make a freaking town together. It would be so cute. But if you're someone who likes or even prefers building as a meditation and don't mind the added activity you get, I think this definitely 100% has replayability. This game is a game of the journey. You keep collecting, building, and expanding with a growing efficiency. So yeah, would I change anything else? As of now, I'm sure Stonebrick Studios is working hard on something else to dazzle us and improve their game, but just throwing out more personal chaotic brain vomit, multiplayer is obvious. Maybe eventually keep perfecting that bloom. I also think it's semi-necessary, especially for bigger crafting plans like the furnace, to allow the player a way to rotate the recipe 3D view in the menu ourselves. It was again just a little too tedious referring back and forth and trying to count the blocks amidst rotations in the preview window. Like maybe give me even a project board recipe that I can craft that lets me drag my recipe out of my menu and pin it to a board I can reference outside of my menu as I sit on the ground with my 87 stones for my furnace. I kept having to put my creation down to open my menu and count, but maybe that's more of a me problem since again, I am not used to games with crafting similar to this. Oh, and we definitely need more water. Waterfalls, lakes, and oceans with beach locations would be such a vibe. I feel like more survival mechanics have been asked for, but I would hope they allow optional opt-out on anything too intense. Again, on the personal preference, I personally run if a game gets too stressful. Yeah, I feel hopeful for where this game will keep going, and I will definitely be keeping an eye on it moving forward. Hope this helped anyone needing a perspective on whether CubeVR could be a good fit. All in all, it has my recommendation for purchase only if you are usually into games like this and don't mind tedium or physical activity. Also, only if you are okay with being solo for now. Could be a hidden gem for certain people, but that's all from me. Thanks for watching. Have a beautiful whatever, and see ya.
My god! What the fuck just threw you? What in the fuck? Cactuses!